All right. Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're calling in from. Welcome to our Finish 2025 Strong with expert insights from the Supermetrics Marketing Data Report. My name's Alex. I'm going to be your kind of host and moderator during today. So I'm going to be making sure that we stay on time and we get to all your questions and we address everything, in chat, etc. But before I go through some housekeeping items, I also something we like doing here is just hearing where people are dialing in from. So you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen, you have a little chat window, you have a Q&A window as well. Go to chat and just drop in where you're dialing in from. We love to see where people are tuning in for these shows. But while you're doing that, there we go: Chicago, Colorado, Nevada. Okay, so we got Wisconsin, Florida, Detroit, Ohio. Okay, we got the United States properly represented. Chattanooga, New York. I'm normally in New York, but today I'm actually at our headquarters in Helsinki, Finland. So that's cool. All right, but let's get into. I'm going to let the speakers introduce themselves in just a second, but before we do that, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. So this session is, of course, being recorded. You will get a recording after the session. We'll follow up with information about that as well, just in case you're interested on that. We will be doing Q&A at the end of the session. So if you see something that's interesting or hear something that we're talking about that you want to dig deeper on, there is also a Q&A tab. Drop your questions in there and we'll do our best. We have a tight schedule today. We'll do our best to get to those at the end. If we don't have time to get to all the questions, we'll follow up with you after the session. And one thing I also wanted to mention before we get into introductions is that as part of this session, for all attendees, we're also offering free strategy sessions with a Supermetrics expert on just how to get the most out of your marketing data, essentially. So there's a polls tab on the right-hand side of your screen as well. If you're interested in one of those, or you hear something that was said that you really would like to implement at your organization, feel free to raise your hand there. We'll follow up with details after the session is over. All right, without further ado, maybe let's let our wonderful speakers introduce themselves. And Courtney, since you're first on the screen here, your little avatar, maybe you want to go first.
Sure. Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Courtney Kreplin. I am an industry team manager at InfoTrust. I oversee partnerships for direct-to-consumer and retail brands, and I bring my experience in marketing, analytics, and customer experience to help design strategies for digital activation and measurement.
Great. Awesome. I guess I'll go next because I'm the next avatar.
Do it.
Lee Goldberg, co-founder and president of digital marketing at HappyCog. We are a full-service digital agency specializing in web and app development, paid media, SEO, analytics, and UX and branding. I oversee client strategy and just making sure that our clients are getting the results that they deserve.
And that leaves me. Everybody, my name is Brian Todd. I'm Principal Business Analyst for BarbecueGuys.com. We are an e-commerce brand. We sell all kinds of outdoor entertainment, barbecue grills, patio furniture, fun stuff for your outdoor life. I'm a huge Pittsburgh Penguins fan, and I let that sort of influence a lot of my data and my life.
Love that. And Zach, how about you? We have another mysterious Supermetrics guest here as well.
Yeah. So pleasure to meet you all, and looking forward to talk to you all today. So my name is Zach Brickert. I'm the lead solutions engineer at Supermetrics. And I see a few names in the chat who I've definitely talked with on the phone before. So thanks for tuning in, and look forward to the questions and everything you have for us today. Amazing. Also, good call, Gabby. Go Birds.
Amazing. All right, well, let's get into it. And before we get into the first, we kind of have three primary topics that we're going to chat through here today. But all of the discussion is going to be based on our 2025 marketing data report that we released kind of earlier this year. So if you haven't checked that out, there's a QR code here, or I believe there's also a link in resources. I hope I'm not speaking out of term here. I just checked. Yes, it is in the resources tab as well of the webinar. So you can get it from there. A lot of this, whatever you hear discussed on this call today is something that, is also covered by the marketing data report. We're just going to go maybe a little deeper on it here today, but grab your own version if you haven't yet. And we're, of course, also working on our 2026 report, so stay tuned for that. All right. And yes, thank you, Joanna, for dropping that in chat just now. All right, well, let's get into the first topic here. Again, we have around 25 minutes left of the show, and we do want to save some time for Q&A. So let's hop in and start discussing one of the primary topics that, of course, was covered by the marketing data report, is this notion of marketers drowning in data. So obviously today we're generating more and more data, and there are more and more data points that you could be looking at and do look at as part of your marketing reporting and kind of ongoing marketing intelligence stack. So one of the first topics is, what advice do we have for these marketers who are drowning in this data? And Lee, maybe you want to kick us off here.
Yeah, sure. So, the issue today isn't that it's not what it was years ago when there was this thirst for data, right? Everybody wanted more data. The issue today isn't that we are lacking data, it's that we have too much data, right? So the question is, how do you cut through it? I think the best approach is to follow the scientific method, break things down into meaningful parts, right? Into small little discrete pieces, and then kind of follow the white rabbit from there. So, if you're an e-commerce retailer, looking to drive customer acquisition or drive revenue, well, what are the things that get you there? Well, it's orders, it's add to carts, it's account creations, it's things like that. Start there, right? Start with the more micro level pieces that you could easily identify, easily siphon off, and then try to, zoom out, forest from trees. So, start with the things that you have that are readily available, that are readily accessible. Start small before you try to solve the larger problem and try to change the world.
Yeah, I think you made a good point there too about kind of cutting out some of the noise and honing in on what you're looking at specifically. I also agree, and I think looking at your goals is a huge part of that. If you decide that you're going to try and solve all of your business problems by looking at one data report, that is probably not attainable. But if you break it down into bite-sized pieces and you understand what your goals are, what your desired outcomes are, and how they differ, you can kind of step back into what metrics can help you go into each of those goals and desired outcomes and how you're going to measure against that, see what's successful, see what's not. And you can get so granular with each department and each individual contributor within your organization and things like that. But starting off there is definitely something that I try to do a lot, and I try to guide people in that direction as well. So completely agree on that.
And make sure you don't leave out your data teams from partnering in those discussions as well. Usually they'll have sort of different levels of experience or different levels of different perspectives that they'll be able to say, hey, we have the data points that can make this type of analysis possible, or we don't have those data points and we need to start looking for alternatives that we can grab from maybe a different channel or a different source.
Yeah, I think the key point here is just don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? Start with what you have and then take it from there.
Yeah, exactly. Something you mentioned too, Brian, reminded me, with all of this data available, it sometimes still feels like we don't have enough because we don't know exactly what we need and we don't know what we're looking for. So it can feel both overwhelming and also like you can't find what you need all at the same time. So that made a lot of sense to me as well.
And Courtney, to follow up there, I think one of the big things that everybody's mentioned, and Lee, I didn't know we were going to get philosophical with bringing in Aristotle's first principles here, but I'm glad that we did. Start with the smallest question that you can answer, which seems like a really basic step. Answering how many clicks I had or answering my engagements is something that is very, very easy and it's descriptive. But the three levels or layers sort of that data science and marketing analytics method of descriptive statistics, which are your basic sort of numbers at the top of the screen, and then your predictive statistics. You need to understand one to get to the other. And then once you can actually move into that predictive space, you can start being prescriptive about what you're doing. But without that sort of base core of, I need to know the facts around my business, and those core numbers are your facts to which you can base everything else off of and ladder up, is really how you should be looking at it. You don't want to start and sit down and say, you know what, I'm going to do my analysis. Let me build a predictive model immediately, or let me go in and do, one of the latest analytical methods. That's not how, data science or how analysis is performed. You start by describing what your data set looks like, and then you move up from there. And to that end, a lot of the things sometimes that we see inside of with our own customers using the product is that they start very wide with the data. And while that's great, as a former data hoarder myself, I love having all of that data. What you really want to build is something that is usable at the end of the day. If you build a data set and you can't immediately use it, you've done something wrong. And you should start over with, what are the simple questions that I'm answering? And then sort of build up to those big questions. And that's where you really get the value of having all of that data and being able to utilize it and leverage it to improve your marketing.
That's honestly, that's such an important point, and one thing that we emphasize at Supermetrics a bunch as well is getting to that unit of value, a unit of value in your reporting really quickly, because you can have a really long and complex report that either doesn't give you any value or you just don't understand. Whereas starting small and getting immediately getting something you can action on and think of, I think that's something we hear time and time again from our clients. So really crucial bit to get started with there. But I think one thing, and just shifting gears to our next topic, which is obviously something that people are starting to use as a kind of the holy grail to help them do a lot of stuff, not just marketing reporting, but a lot of stuff in marketing, is obviously AI. And we wouldn't be able to have a webinar about marketing in 2025 without talking about artificial intelligence to some extent. So one thing we touched on in the report, and what I'd love to dig deeper on with the panelists here today, is with AI, how are you deploying it now in your organizations? What are you doing with your clients or with your teams to be able to get the most out of AI? I do some things in our teams. I'm sure I'm just scratching the surface. So would love to hear from our panelists today how you're approaching this. And with this one, Courtney, maybe you want to kick us off on the AI topic, everybody's favorite.
Sure. Yeah, like you mentioned, AI is growing quickly. And if you're not using it, you're already a step behind. It doesn't mean you can't catch up, but you can bet that your neighbors next to your desk are definitely using it. And it's something that people can kind of get on either side of the spectrum for, whether you're an adopter or not right now. And what we've used a lot at InfoTrust is AI to enable quicker action, and not to replace individuals, not to replace the experts we have on staff, but more so to supplement and allow and enable them to work faster. So you can put in thousands of data sets into an AI agent, and they can parse through it really quickly. It doesn't mean it'll be without mistakes, but that's where the human component, the expertise, comes in to validate, confirm, really make sure things are on the right track. But that time savings can really allow and enable your experts to do exactly what they're meant to do and be an expert in their field, and to take it beyond the surface level, go in deeper, and really analyze and provide actionable next steps based on what the data is telling us, instead of parsing through all that data manually. So we do a lot of that on our day-to-day. We also are leveraging AI to help build software more quickly as well. So that way we can enable our customers to use and empower them to use software to cut through the noise as well. It kind of goes back to the last statement and the last question around, how do you cut through all of this data that you have available? And AI could be the answer. It's about how you use it. and making sure that you're not losing all of the human component, all of the human expertise, because you can train an AI agent to do a lot of things, but it's not a final solution, right? There needs to be some human intervention. Just like there's human error, there's also technology error, and there needs to be extra checks and balances regardless of who's kind of cutting through all the noise. But AI can be a really great tool to help you go through things faster and allow your time to market to be much quicker.
Yeah, I would say on the Happy Cog side, we use it for the things that it's good at, right? Use it for the things that a machine can do well and can do faster and more reliably than any human, processing bid decisions on a paid media campaign, right? In the old days, we used to, download all the campaign data into an Excel sheet, write formulas, manually upload it, change the bids. The machines can do that, right? So lean into that. Let it do that. Let it look at, okay, well, budget distribution. Should we be spending more money in this Google campaign that has less impression share than this one, right? So those sorts of things where there's very clear kind of data points and very good inputs, you can get very good outputs out of. The other piece of it, though, is more on the generative side, right? In terms of creative, in terms of content. And, I think what it comes down to is getting comfortable with the fact that you're going to be uncomfortable with it. Not every generative AI, built image or piece of ad copy is going to fit your brand guidelines perfectly. And that's okay, right? You can human review it, you can edit it, but try it, get in the game, learn, fail fast, and let the AI tell you kind of what's working and what's not working. Then use the smart people on your team to iterate on it.
Yeah, you're both so right. Courtney, with the fact that it speeds up the business process. And Lee, I loved your analogy of the machine. At Barbecue Guys, especially on the brand side, we're kind of running as fast as our engineering team can run. And sometimes that means we're waiting on tech debt, or we're waiting on them to settle up other projects that are more important for other aspects of the business. So other business teams don't have the ability to go out and solve the problems that might just be a simple code snippet that they just don't have the language skills to write. So the analogy of the machine, we have machines that make burgers. We have machines that build computer chips. We have machines that build cars. Now we have a machine that writes code for us. Doesn't mean it's going to get that code right every single time. There's still going to be an element of testing and back and forth between the machine, especially when you're starting to use that code and you start to get some errors that you also don't understand. But that's sort of the back and forth. That's where the intuition of the machine and hopefully the generative aspect of AI starts to improve as we use it more and more into the future.
Yeah, I mean, it gets smarter as we go, right? And so, we see in so many organizations that we work with just paralysis of how do we get started, right? Wayne Gretzky once said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So if you can't build that landing page, if you can't, build that creative, lean on the AI, right? It'll get you in the game and at least start that process.
One thing I've noticed in like my own personal, obviously in working in marketing, like a lot of the content generation is very near to my heart, and I work in product marketing, and a lot of product marketing is taking technical solutions and explaining it in a less technical way. So I tend to ask ChatGPT often that, or Gemini often that, explain this to me like I'm 5 years old, just like really dumb it down for me. And I've done it so many times that Gemini remembers that this is what I want to know. So it gives it to me by default all the time. And that again just speeds up my time to using it. So like again, good takeaways from all here, but it sounds like the consistent theme is just use it, just start using it, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and like actually use these tools to your advantage to create value, because it's only going to continue to develop faster. All right, but let's keep chugging along. We have one more topic, and then again, we promised to get to a bit of Q&A there at the end. Again, there is the Q&A tab on your right-hand side. So if you have any questions on anything you've heard thus far, just do drop them into chat, and we'll try to get to as many of those as we can at the end. But let's go on to our last kind of main topic from the data report here, which is, we're getting close to the end of the year. Obviously, this is going to be peak season for many, especially if you're in retail or e-com, and Black Friday and Cyber Monday and all this stuff is right around the corner. The holiday season is coming up. It's a busy time. So everybody's trying to crunch through and get through as much as they can to set them up for success next year. So just as a kind of overall bit of wisdom, what's the advice you would give on how to first of all, finish this year strong and then set yourself up for success in the next year? And Brian, we've run around the table with everybody else, so maybe you want to start us off here.
Sure thing. So look, there's no doubt too much data has obviously been the common theme, and that's really coming out in this report for 2025. I think the biggest thing and the most important action that businesses can take for the rest of this year and then leading into 2026 is to get those marketers and get those data teams into a room and start having those types of discussions, the awkward discussions, the difficult discussions about key topics that are important to your business. Topics such as what constitutes a customer versus a lead versus a visitor. Where are those transitions happening between the different variations? How do we want to define our attribution model? And then once you've done those first two things, then you can start taking a bigger picture view and looking at channel mix. How do we maximize our ROI against our ad spend, and answering those types of questions? These definitions, they really become sort of the foundation of your company's business analytics. So you need to make sure that they adhere to sort of the executive or the owner direction. Data teams should also focus on building composite models. They'll feature both internal and external data, but that's kind of important. You want to be able to have the visibility of what's going on inside and also have something to bounce it off with the external data as well. That's where partners such as Supermetrics, Google, Tableau, Power BI, all of the different fun products that you can really get your hands on, they offer products and services that help simplify that effort. And in particular, for barbecue guys, we're actually making use of Supermetrics API tool. It creates a single integration for our company that we pull all of the different channel metrics from our different advertising channels, and we build an internal model based off of one integration as opposed to 9 or 10 or 20. From there, we're just working with our various business stakeholders and provide sort of the custom reporting that they've become used to throughout our time together.
I love the plug. We promised everybody in the audience that we were not holding Brian hostage to have him say that. So.
No, I did. I enjoy Supermetrics. They gave us a good product, so I promised them a shout out because we're making good use of their stuff.
Yeah, no, it is a good product, and and I would say, like, on a related note, we're in October now, right? It's a good time to do fall cleaning, right? To set yourselves up well for 2026. That starts with data collection, especially if you're using AI, as we were saying before, to analyze data. The outputs that you get are only as good as the inputs that you give it, right? So, good time to just do some fall cleaning. Make sure your data collection is in order. Make sure tracking codes aren't broken. Make sure that the GA4 tag is firing properly and your custom events are firing properly, or you're capturing order IDs and things like that in your pixels. It's not the most glamorous activity, but again, especially in an AI-centric world that relies on these kinds of inputs, you need to make sure that you're feeding it quality. And so, data collection, right? 2025 is over. Obviously, we want to maximize what's left of it. But for 2026, a good New Year's resolution is to invest in some data hygiene, and then that starts now.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned that too, forward looking into 2026. I would be a little bit remiss if I didn't talk also about data privacy. That was mentioned in the report that you all put together at Supermetrics, but we haven't talked about it yet. And I think now's a good time to kind of look at what does next year hold in terms of data privacy, and how do we become compliant if we're not already? How do we stay compliant if we are already? And what's next? What's on the horizon? Europe has been kind of leading the path, but different states in the United States have been making a lot of promises and a lot of new movements over the past couple of months. And how do we continue to evolve with these laws, these regulations, and make sure that we're not kind of subjecting ourselves to potential penalties or risks in the future? And now, when a lot of retail companies are going on code freezes and things like that, are really good times to kind of evaluate and assess where the business stands on privacy and where you want to be in 2026. So that's a big one for us as well, is just kind of staying up on all of the regulations as they evolve, and really pushing towards staying compliant, using first party data, setting up an architecture versus relying on third party historic data that's going away. And how do we become ahead instead of getting kind of left behind and playing catch up?
Yeah, I think having a strong plan. We've talked about privacy, and Lee and Brian have both mentioned some cleanup that you can do. For me, it's really making sure that you have a strong plan on what you want to do with your data, where it's going to reside long term. Part of privacy is part of, where am I storing this data? Where can I store this data? For some of them, and our customers in Europe, they have to store it in Europe. For our US side, they may have more options, but depending on what option you choose, know what comes with that. And that's really the crux of it, is make sure that when you're constructing your plan for 2026, that you're putting data first. It's going to be the core of your business in terms of how you report to your customers, whether that's internal or external, as well as how you're going to leverage the different tools like we've talked about with AI to stay on top of things. If you have bad data, and I don't mean incorrect data necessarily, but badly structured data, you're going to have problems leveraging AI to its fullest extent. When we talk about data, sort of garbage in, garbage out, which Lee mentioned previously, it comes down to, how is this modeled? What does it look like? And can the AI actually leverage it? If you have a lot of joins, if you have a lot of files just sort of sifting everywhere, being able to make connections to those is still relatively nascent on the AI end. Once you go past a few connections, it starts to be able to lose its context and ability to draw those conclusions and to infer. So making sure that everything is as well laid out and structured as you possibly can is a big part of that. And Alex, I know we only have like 3 minutes left, so I'll kick it back over to you for the Q&A.
Yeah, I was gonna say that the whole, I mean, your AI, any AI performance starts with quality information. Like that's how any of these large language models work, right? They crawl the entire internet to and consume all the information so that they can give you proper recommendations. And that's no different when it comes to AI in a marketing context. And actually, I heard a rumor that we may be following up this session with an AI specific webinar in the near future. So me and Joanna were just talking about that today. So stay keep your eyes peeled for that one later on in the year or in the quarter. All right, we have like 2 minutes left, and I see that there's no questions in the Q&A tab. Again, if you do have any, please drop them in now. We can still follow up with those later on if you want to have something answered after the fact. But we asked you guys for some questions beforehand, so that we just had something to cover at the end. And you did submit a few. And let's pick out one of these. This one. So what do you see is the biggest trend coming in 2026? And I'm assuming this is related to, marketing and marketing data. But so let's maybe not talk clothing trends, but like, what do you guys see as the biggest trend for 2026? We can cap it off with that one. Let's go around the room.
I'll grab it first. Listen, I call this one the great integration. I think that it's coming. It may already be upon us, but the important thing is, just like Zach was saying with AI a little bit ago, it's so important that you have your data structured in a way that makes it easier for integrations to happen, whether that integration is AI driven, whether it's manually driven or business driven. Someone somewhere is going to have to look at a data set and determine what makes this connectable and joinable to other data sets internally and externally. And so absolutely, we're going to be spending more time bringing data in, but also aligning it with our internal models as well.
Yeah, I would say, we see channels getting more splintered as well. So that we all see the trend on Google, for example, where CPCs are going up, right? So, that creates an even bigger opportunity for programmatic, for TikTok, for Pinterest, for all these different channels that all have their own different attribution models, and they're all all have their own ways of tracking conversions. So, kind of picking out your gold standard, right? Aligning on one that you can apply across channel to try to calibrate them, knowing that it's going to be imperfect, right? It's sort of like the cure for cancer. Nobody's actually figured out how to do it yet. But again, perfect doesn't have to be the enemy of the good here, right? So, come up with an attribution model that can unify the data that you have coming in to the extent that you can, and then measure against that. And so, as we look to 2026, we think incrementality testing, right, and really kind of measuring the incrementality of different channels on and off is going to become a much bigger part of the overall, marketing mix and media mix, of the coming months.
And I know we're at time, so I'll be brief. But I think one other piece that we haven't mentioned yet as well is increased ownership and control over the data. It kind of relates to your point, Lee, about how do we leverage the data for additional advertising platforms and pivot based on what the data is telling us. But increased ownership and control over that own data, over that first party data is also something that we're seeing a lot at InfoTrust with our customers, and leveraging server-side tagging environments to kind of increase that control has been some pretty low-hanging fruit that some of our customers have been leveraging lately as well. So I suspect that to continue into next year and only get even more important as the first-party data takes over more officially and people are leveraging it in a bit more consistent way.
Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Well, we're already up for time. Zach, maybe we'll save your tidbits for another day. We'll follow up with some more content on this, of course, with people. So we'll follow up, and you're going to be hearing a lot about our upcoming marketing data report for 2026. So that's going to have a lot of these trends included in it as well. But with that, we're already up for time. I'd like to thank all of our amazing panelists. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your insights. Thank you to everybody in the audience who tuned in to listen to us. And yeah, have a good rest of your day and stay tuned for our upcoming content. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.